everyone, and welcome into season 2 of the Offseason. I'm Cassie Carlson. So excited for this show to come back, and what perfect timing, because if there's anything we've learned this past week, the NFL is year-round, and Bears news especially is year-round, and what typically is a quiet week ahead of the NFL Combine quickly became a very busy one here in Chicago. Joining me throughout the season is the Athletic's Dan Wiederer. So excited to have you alongside for this ride, which begins today. And we are also welcomed by Bears radio analyst Tom Thayer, who is joining us for this show. Let's start with the biggest news this week, which came yesterday. Thursday's stadium news as Hammond, Indiana swoops in as the focus for the Bears to build their new stadium site. Dan, I'll start with you. You wake up Thursday morning, you hear that Illinois canceled their meeting about this, and you're thinking what?
Well, look, there's a tug of war going on right now between Indiana and Illinois and who wants to keep the Bears or lure the Bears to their state. And so you have a situation here where you just got to be very flexible in understanding how fluid this situation is and kind of reading through the complexity of the layers of everything to try to get a read on where things are. Obviously, Indiana made great progress here in their part of trying to get the Bears to Hammond. And now the next step is Illinois responding and trying to do their part to keep the Bears attached to that project in Arlington Heights that's been on the table for so long.
Yeah, when the Bears released their statement, they called it the most meaningful step forward. And Tom, I want to bring you in because you have an interesting perspective from this from a bunch of different sides, right? You're a former player, alumni, you work for the Bears as a radio analyst, you're a fan. Put on the former player hat, because a lot of people keep asking me, like, how do the players feel about this? And I keep saying the players don't care. Like, I don't believe the players truly care. But from a former player's standpoint, do you care?
I really don't. But, you know, I've been in every new stadium built in North America in the last 40 years and a lot of them over in Europe. And I've seen what can be offered to the modern day player under the, you know, newly constructed types of stadiums. And they're state of the art, from the locker room to the meal room to the field itself to the different ways that you cover the stadium. There's a lot of different interesting aspects of new stadiums that you kind of look at and see what they all offer different different cities, different venues and stuff like that. So it's interesting to think of what could be. And I guess that's the direction that you have to go right now as an ex-player.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the direction of what it could be. And I think that's where a lot of Bears fans are wondering what could be, because the Bears also said in their statement that they're going to do the due diligence about the site survey to even see if it's plausible to build a stadium, a dome stadium, a mixed-use development area on this plot of land that's in Hammond, Indiana, off of Wolf Lake. And I think that would be the next step. Dan, for you, I mean, do you see this as posturing by the Bears? Because we know that Indiana's legislative session is ending in a week. We know that Illinois is in their legislative session right now.
I think that timeline is very important because the state of Indiana's business will be done legislatively wise at the end of this month, at the end of next week. And so you had this timeline for the state of Indiana to try to put some of these things in place if they were truly serious about bringing the Bears there and the Bears were truly serious about listening to the offers. And so now those are there, right? Those things are locked in, that box is checked, and the Bears have new cards in their hand to play. Now it's how do they play them with their back and forth with Illinois. And so it's going to be really interesting to see. Again, I think the next step in all of this is what is Illinois' response and how does that change the dynamic for the Bears and what does it do for Indiana, who's now really a burden hand for the Bears.
Paris Schutz, our political reporter, said this week could be a busy week for Illinois legislators. Tom, from this point of view, the Hammond, Indiana mayor said something about a practice facility possibly going in Hammond. And to me, I look at Hallis Hall, which is one of the premier practice facilities, underwent recent renovations up in Lake Forest. So I don't know that I see that changing per se. Would you say that it's safe to say it's going to stay in Lake Forest?
I mean, if they made you an offer that was uncomparable, that was attractive to free agents, that was the best facility built in the National Football League, then I guess it's something you have to listen to. Hallis Hall is 56 miles away from Hammond, Indiana. And so you'd have to take that in consideration as well. But then you'd have to relocate all the players that have already put their families in place in the areas that they live at near Hallis Hall. So there's a lot that you have to take into consideration. If you're talking about moving an entire organization to Indiana, because the one thing that you still have an attachment to Illinois is having your training facility in Lake Forest. And people have become accustomed now to coming to the Bears facility during training camp, because now that's where they house training camp, but it's also open to fans. So they have the opportunity to see where the Bears train and work on an everyday basis during the season.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next week, as we mentioned, down in, this is all political, it seems like at this point as well. All right, I want to switch gears to the other big news this week. Caleb Williams appearing on Maxx Crosby's The Rush podcast, because the timing was impeccable. Of course, Maxx Crosby is being linked to the Bears during trade talks, and the two clearly have a respect for one another. Take a listen.
Honestly, I don't give any defenders overall on defense any credit and flowers, just because.
I get it.
Yeah, and I don't ever think that anybody's on my level of 110 every single play kind of mindset, and you know that's kind of the level that I would kind of put Brother Man right here at.
Yeah.
So it's
respect.
I love that Caleb Williams truly believes that he is the best player on the field every time that he steps on a field. They sat down for more than an hour together. They discussed a whole bunch of different stuff. Dan, starting with you, what were your main takeaways?
Well, look, I loved the comfort that those two guys had with one another.
Comfy couch.
And it was like a competitive comfort between those two guys, because I think there's such an obvious mutual respect, having played against one another in September and seeing like, wow, this guy is wired like I am. This guy's capable of making big time plays like I am. And so to see those guys connect on that level, I thought it was pretty fun for the offseason. Now, what does it mean? Everybody else can do all that digging and trying to read between the lines and figuring out what the interpretation of it all is. But just having two of the better players in the league get together in that kind of setting and trade thoughts was pretty fun.
Yeah, Tom, what were some of your favorite takeaways from listening to that?
Well, one thing about Caleb, we understand that has great conditioning. He has unbelievable arm strength. Physically, he's up to all the physical challenges of the game. But to me, Caleb is only scratching the surface of ultimately what he's going to be in a Ben Johnson team, career, offense over a period of time. I don't think when you are a quarterback trying to master the terminology of a new system that it comes to you within a half of a season or a year. I think when you look at all the great quarterbacks throughout history in the NFL, if you have that luxury to stay within the same system and the same terminology for a number of years, you have a chance to improve incrementally year in and year out. So, yeah, Caleb has already shown us what he can be, the big playability he has to make, the arm talent that he has to make, that he's shown us from all over the field and all the difficult throws he makes. But I can't wait to see him in year 2, 3, 4 of the Ben Johnson era. That's when I think we're going to see the best out of Caleb.
Yeah, he touched on that. He talked about the jump he made from year 1 to year 2 and the jump that he wants to make from year 2 to year 3. Part of it was just taking the easy passes, the layup passes that we continue to talk about, because his completion percentage was way down from that 70% that Ben Johnson threw out at the beginning of the season. But he also just talked about the importance of being around Ben Johnson. Take a listen to what he had to say about that.
He is like a player. Like, he wants to whoop everybody's
cutthroat.
Every coach,
cut their heads off.
Every defense, and for me, I love it, because that's. I feel the same way. I'm on the same wavelength. I'm on the same vibe. When we go out there, I want to put up 50. If it's a shootout, it's a shootout. If it's a blowout, it's a blowout. Like, whatever. That's on all of us as a team to do. But going out there and putting up 50, being the best offense to ever touch the grass is kind of the mindset.
All right, so Caleb Williams said that he wants to be part of the #1 offense in the NFL next season under Ben Johnson. You look at what they did this past season. They overhauled the interior of the offensive line. They added weapons in Colston Loveland, Luther Burden. They have another draft pick that they could use in the first round, 25th overall, coming up in the upcoming draft. Do you think it's realistic to be the #1 offense?
Cassie, I love setting huge goals as long as you understand the work that comes along with pursuing them. And I think that's probably the next step for Caleb in his second full offseason with Ben, is just understanding, like, we got to get to work with what some of Tom talked about just a minute ago, just the system knowledge. The Bears are banking on that being a springboard to Caleb's development. Like, that's going to be the next thing that catapults him. And we're going to hear a lot this offseason about efficiency, about keeping the ball in play. We know the big game, big moment, big playability. Now it's all about, can you handle the little things on a consistent basis to be efficient?
Tom, one of the things that struck me was just how he could vividly remember that touchdown throw to Cole Kmet against the Rams to send that game to overtime. Details of where the edge rushers were coming from and how he felt like he had the entire stadium in front of him and he could see exactly where Cole Kmet was. Like, what stood out about just the knowledge and the tiny details that this quarterback I don't think he described him so much his first year, but now in his second year is able to describe.
Well, one thing about Caleb, the longer he's able to grow inside the system, the more he's going to be able to give you actual reenactments of plays from earlier in the year to the end of the year. And I think he once he develops that understanding of every single thing he says and what it means to the other 10 guys in the huddle, and then you also have the call of a built-in audible, he can sit there in a snapshot describe everything that's going on. And I think that kind of goes with all of us that have the luxury of being in the same system for a while, because I can look at a picture of a game and I can tell you the game, I can tell you how I played and what I did, good or bad. And some of those are the neat things about playing in a team sport. But when you talk about playing quarterback, you mean so much to the success of the team. And listen, man, I'm glad that Caleb sits there and talks confidently in front of a guy like Maxx Crosby, because I think that's what the Bears fans want to hear. That's what they want to see, because ultimately they know where Caleb can take this organization. And, again, I talk about the luxury of being with Ben Johnson. This is something that's going to get bigger and better and more explosive as many years as they're together.
You talk about fans want to hear a confident quarterback, but you've got to want to hear a confident quarterback too as an offensive lineman, to know that the guy behind you is like, I'm going to go out there and win the game. He said it himself that he feels most comfortable in the 2-minute drills. Everything slows down. He's at ease, and he showed that, 7 times this season.
Yeah, the one thing about Caleb, too, is the better he understands the information, he's also going to understand the vulnerabilities of each and every play he calls. So when he breaks the huddle and he goes to the line of scrimmage and he sees what the defense is offering him, he knows if there's a vulnerability to the protection. He knows if there's an RPO, there's a guy that may overreact to the fake that may open up a running lane for him. So all the little nuances that's built into an offense, because you know it so well, it's not necessarily where the defenders are, it's you knowing where your players are going to be.
I'll never forget Tom Brady saying that's what made his job so easy back when he was playing quarterback.
The 85 Bears and that group of winning and going to playoffs and all of that was it's a bear city. And so I think I didn't realize it until probably this year, to be honest with you. When you started winning and the people around the city. I mean, you're driving into the city at night on off days or anything like that, or game days, or whatever the case may be in the night before the game, and the whole city, like the skyline, is like blue and orange.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It is.
Yeah, it's sick, man. And so I appreciate everybody.
Welcome back to the offseason. That was Caleb Williams describing what it's like to play in Chicago on Maxx Crosby's podcast. And I love Maxx Crosby in the background. He's like, that's sick. That's dope. No tampering, but you can kind of see his gears working, like, that might be kind of nice to play in a city like that. And the Raiders edge rusher is tied to trade rumors to Chicago. This week, ESPN's Bill Barnwell released a list of projected trades this offseason. Here's what he has for the Bears. They trade DJ Moore and this year's first-round pick to Vegas and receive Maxx Crosby and a 2027 fifth-round pick. A lot of people were surprised. This was only going to be the asking price. I don't know if that's true or not. We don't know if Bill Barnwell knows anything or not. But, Dan, if you're Ryan Poles, do you make this call and you get this trade done?
Well, those who know me as the cranky sports writer know that I love nothing more in February than mock drafts and fake trades, right? Like, this is what stirs the pot in the NFL offseason. And what you have here, Cassie, is a trade that the Bears would absolutely have to make. I mean, you're talking about adding a premier edge rusher, and the first-round pick that the Bears have is number 25. This isn't where they've been picking in recent years in the first round, in the top 10 where you're giving up premium draft capital. It's still a good pick. But, man, if the Raiders were cool with that deal, yeah, I'd sign off on it right now.
I don't know that we know the Raiders are cool with that deal, because we had a Vegas reporter on earlier this week, and he thought that was a low asking price. I was surprised because I think you could look at what the Packers and Cowboys did last year, trading Micah Parsons, and the Packers had to give up Kenny Clark and 2 first-round picks. Yeah. I want to bring back Tom Thayer because, Tom, we know the Bears need an edge rusher. And I feel like you look at the Rams, the Seahawks, and they were good examples of what a good D-line and edge rushers can do in the postseason especially. What does Maxx Crosby add to this Bears lineup if they do make that trade?
Well, he he gives some relief to the other defensive ends. You know, he may be opening up some more one-on-one opportunities for Montez Sweat. You get Austin Booker involved in the rotation when they still have Maxx Crosby concerns. Maxx Crosby is capable of playing anywhere from what they call a 9 technique, which is really wide defensive end, all the way into the over the shoulder of the offensive guard. He's got a variety of skills that he's always got to be accountable for. He's the type of guys that an offensive coordinator has to design his pass protection to factor in Maxx Crosby's. And so when you look in the past history of what Reggie White did and then what a guy like Von Miller did, they came in and they brought Super Bowl success with them. And so now you got to kind of figure out, if you do have the opportunity to get a Maxx Crosby, what is he going to take? What is it going to take to get him? And then you have to kind of ask him and Montez. So they both predominantly play over the right tackle. Mm-hmm. Who is more comfortable with getting in an opposite-handed stance to play against the left tackle? And there's, you know, some of that evaluation process that you have to go through. But I do think that both of them are premium defensive ends, and Maxx Crosby is the type of guy that is going to make all coordinators adjust to his whereabouts.
Yeah, he said that he had to go back and watch Josh McDaniels' last game as coach when the Raiders played the Lions to see what Ben Johnson did to game plan against him. He said he watched it 100 times before playing the Bears this year, and he didn't have a sack in either game. But he did have an interception. He picked off Caleb Williams on this crazy, I think you look at the premier edge rushers. He said he wants to be in the conversations of Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. Is he in that conversation right now, or does he have to be on a winning team in order to get there, Dan?
Well, no, I think you just need to be consistent with the production, and he's certainly shown the flashes of being brilliant as an edge rusher. And now really the question is, you know, what is the price tag, as you mentioned earlier? I really do think from people I've talked to around the league, it's going to require 2 ones at a minimum to lure him away. But certainly Crosby's the type of guy that makes an instant impact on whatever defense he joins. Now it's a matter of who's got both the draft capital and then the money, the salary cap space to fit him on their roster.
Tom, just because we're looking at this projected trade in general, it had DJ Moore as part of the player that would be sent to Vegas. Can this wide receiver room afford to lose someone like DJ Moore? Because they drafted Luther Burden, who has a similar play style, but every time you talk about DJ Moore, it's about his toughness that makes other players want to be on the field too.
I love DJ Moore. He's one of my all-time favorite NFL players since he's come aboard and before he got here. I just love his reflection of professionalism. Whenever he's on the field, even if he gets dinged up, he's right back on the field. But you have to consider, where is Rome Odunze going? What can Jade Walker offer you? Where is Luther Burden going? Are they going to re-sign Devin Duvernay? Is there another free agency out there like Richardson, who's already been on the practice squad and spent last year's training camp with them? Or is there a guy out there that's mid-round draftable that can come in here and be a contributor? And you got to remember, you know, the standard that Ben set from the wide receiver position immediately is no block, no rock. And so you can't come in here and just be a pass catcher. You have to be able to do a variety of things from the receiver position, line up in a lot of different areas, and still be productive. I'm not giving DJ Moore away for anything, because I really like what he offers inside the locker room before they ever get on the game or the practice field. But I guess everybody is considerable when you're talking about a guy with the motor of Maxx Crosby.
All right, so there's a couple different options here when you look to address the edge rusher position. So I'm going to ask your preference. Dan, I'll start with you. Do you prefer to trade for Maxx Crosby, sign Trey Hendrickson in free agency, who's the top free agent defensive end, or do you draft an edge rusher in what they're considering a deep draft class at the position?
This may stun the audience, but I prefer to draft, and I prefer to just kind of use the path of being patiently aggressive and being practical with how you develop guys, and use that runway towards pursuing the Super Bowl rather than going out and making the big splash expenditure in a way where maybe your window widens for a year or two, but then it narrows really quickly. And so you just have to be really, really confident with the idea that you've got an opportunity here to contend for years, and it doesn't have to be 2026 or bust. And so in that regard, I think you can use that draft pick and try to bring a guy along that way.
Tom, I feel like you're drafting.
I am going to draft, but Cass, I wish that we are all privy to the medical charts of all these guys, because I think we can make a more clear-headed decision if we knew where a 31-year-old Hendrickson, a 28-year-old Maxx Crosby, or a 22, 23-year-old kid coming out of college, that you could hopefully get 25 pass rushing snaps out of him a game and let him grow into that position. So to me, it's always about the medicals, and am I getting damaged goods, or am I getting a guy that's ready, willing, and able to go from the first day of OTAs?
Yeah, so you bring up an interesting point with the medicals, and I think that's where the hesitation around Trey Hendrickson comes into place right now, because he did undergo core muscle surgery. And I keep referring back to Jalen Johnson, who, mind you, came back mid-season, but was not the same player. I would expect him to work this offseason to try and get back. But that's why, to me, Hendrickson, who many people wanted the Bears to trade for him last year, he gets hurt. He doesn't have the production. He doesn't have the back-to-back 17.5 seasons. And that's where there's suddenly the trepidation, also being on the other side of 30, Dan.
Well, I was just going to say, it's the medical report and it's the birth certificate, because you are in the later stages of your career, and you've got to kind of make that projection on how much gas is still left in the tank. And along with that, these teams have to evaluate what is available to them in both free agency and the draft. And this, in most league circles, is regarded as a very good defensive line and edge class here, both free agency and in the draft. And so you're going to have options. And so that creates the supply and demand that allows you to make those decisions practically.
Tom, if you're going free agency, is Bradley Chubb the consolation prize?
Again, privy to medical charts. I would definitely give him some consideration. I'd love to get him in here and let him walk around the weight room, let him get on the field, see how he is structurally, but my guy that I'm going to pay a lot of attention to is Shamar Turner, because he's a guy that's an interesting candidate, because he can play a variety of positions himself. If they tell Shamar Turner, okay, you're going to be a contributor at defensive end, then I'm going to let him get his body ready, weight, size, and strength to play defensive end. If you're going to be a definitely dedicated 3-technique defensive tackle, I'm going to do the same thing there, because you're talking about a guy as an edge rusher that could be 270 pounds, or he could be an interior player at 305 to whatever weight he can carry correctly and efficiently. And so I'm not going to lose sight of what he can offer me when I look at all these other deals that can come into the mix.
All right, I do want to address cap constraints that the Bears do have. And we know they released linebacker and special teamer Amen Ogbongbemiga yesterday. Linebacker Tremaine Edmunds is another candidate that could be released because he would free up $15 million. It seems like the Bears are starting to evaluate this ahead of going to the Combine next week. It's the timeline that they followed in years past. Is Tremaine Edmunds expendable? I mean, he got hurt this season. DeMarco Jackson stepped in pretty seamlessly. But at one point, he was playing probably his best ball in Chicago and led the team with 4 interceptions.
In an ordinary year, you'd love to keep Tremaine around. But as we sit here right now, just a couple weeks away from the new league year, the Bears have to do something to get under the projected salary cap. They don't have a lot of time to do it, and that's an obvious move to make to get yourself there. It's not always fair. It's not always performance-related. Sometimes it's just business.
Tom, is linebacker a more plug-and-play position than others in this Tremaine Edmunds scenario?
Dennis Allen, he asks a lot of it out of his linebackers, but last year we saw that there was a plug-and-play position. We had injuries to T.J. Edwards, to Tremaine, to Noah Sewell, to Hippolyte, and you were able to come in and put all these players in, and they were super productive. And I think that's a sign of a good coaching, a good defense, and a good staff that is really getting these guys acclimated to be able to play if needed. And so I do think there's guys out there, there's, Quay Walker's a free agent for Green Bay. You got another one, Anzalone, who I think he may have a little bit of time with Dennis Allen in New Orleans. So there's a couple of guys out there that if you can maybe take a guy from your own division and they can come in here for maybe less of a salary, you'd have to take some consideration there too. But again, I think it's just like we talked about going young in the draft with defensive end position. If you could go a young contributor like they did with Hippolyte before he got hurt, maybe there's another guy out there waiting in the wings.
How would you describe your leadership style, and how would teammates describe you as a person and as a player?
I think one of the biggest things that I would say leadership-wise is that I care for everybody in the locker room. I say that, and then I think I'm a fierce competitor. I hate losing.
The Bears releasing a little behind the scenes of their interview with Caleb Williams. That was at the 2024 NFL Combine. Feels like years and years ago. And that's where we are heading next week. Fox Chicago will be down in Indy bringing you the latest all week long. The Bears have the 25th pick in the first round. They have 7 total draft picks, including 25, 57, and 89. I look at this and I think a few positions come to mind. You need an edge rusher. You need a defensive tackle. You need a left tackle. You need a safety. So with all those in mind, Dan, I want to start with you. How do you rank your priority top 3?
Well, I'm putting number 1 defensive line, and I'm including defensive tackle in there because I think the interior of the defensive line may be a focal point for the Bears here in the early parts of the offseason, and we'll see what they can get done there to add some guys there. Obviously, safety with 4 guys coming out of contract. You don't have anybody right now under contract for 2026, so that's got to be a big need for the Bears. And then left tackle, I think you want to find yourself a starter that helps both Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson be at their best.
All right, Tom, I want you to take us through your list of priority needs.
Well, first of all, I would go with safety. Like Dan said, I need candidates for the position. Every other one of those positions, there's candidates there that you can go through the evaluation process, and they have some quality coaching here that can make the decision. So safety is, I need more than 1. I need a minimum of 3 to come out here and contribute as starters, but also be contributors on special teams. And number 2, because you have TJ Edwards, you have Hippolyte, you have Noah Sewell, all those guys that finished the season injured. We don't know what's going on with Tremaine. They just got rid of Anbad Bamiga. And so you're also going to need that second level of the defense, because I think it's super important to the success of this defense in the Dennis Allen style that he plays. And then number 1, I think it's going to be defensive line for me. And I know it's 1, 2, 3, but I have faith that Ozzie Trapillo will be back eventually, but I also have faith that Theo Benedette will invest himself into the offseason, and Dan Rochar has done a really nice job of getting who's ever out there competing is prepared for the job mentally and physically. But when I look at what this defense needs, stopping the run, getting more sacks, getting pressure on the opponent's quarterback, and you look at where this quarterback position is going within the division, when you got Jared Goff, who's getting older, uncertainty at Minnesota, and they have Jordan Love in Green Bay. If you can get a defense that limits the success of the opponent's running game and makes these guys one-dimensional in long distance, I think you can help the overall first, second, and third level of the defense.
Tom, I'm shocked that you didn't put left tackle on this, because I think when Joe Thuney was moved to left tackle in the playoffs, everyone was like, that was the clear indicator that they didn't trust Theo Benedict to go up against Jared Verse. But you trust that he can put in the work this offseason and be serviceable, kind of like Braxton Jones was for his first 3 seasons.
I'm sorry, Cass. Trust is one thing last year. I think development is something that has to happen in everybody's position. It's like our offensive line coach, Dick Stanfield, always used to say, as long as your arrow's pointed up, I'm going to look to coach you. As soon as I see your arrows pointed downward, I got to look to replace you. And I don't think Theo Benedette's arrow is pointed down. I just think it's a matter of him being around reps, being inside the weight room, being inside the cafeteria, developing a little bit more on his frame that gives him better opportunities to win battles out there. So I still have faith in Dan Rochar, his offensive line staff, that they could get the best out of Theo Benedette.
All right, we know Ozzie Trapillo is going to be out deep into the season. That's what Ryan Poles said at the end of the year. Tom, before we let you go, I want to play one more clip from Caleb on Crosby's podcast for you.
Yo, Joe's might be.
He's insane.
He might be the greatest.
He
might be the greatest
protector
guard
of the year.
He might be the greatest guard.
Yeah.
Yo,
bro,
he's unreal. His resume plus who he's gone against and the games he's been in, and I love Joe. He's the best.
Guard to guard, is Joe Thuney the greatest guard of all time?
Fundamentally, mentally, I really think he is. I played with his uncle at Notre Dame. I played with some unbelievable guards in the NFL. My brother-in-law played offensive guard for 11 years with the Atlanta Falcons. I was coached by a Hall of Fame offensive guard in Dick Stanfield. I've seen good, but I've been able to witness great, and that's Joe Thuney.
Oh, wow. The Bears have the protector of the year and the greatest guard of all time.
Mr. Reliable, for sure.
Yep. All right, we have run out of time. For Dan Wiederer and Tom Thayer, I'm Cassie Carlson. Thanks for joining us on the offseason. We'll see you next week from the Combine in Indy. Have a good weekend.